Well, welcome along to the second part of the Pink Strat building project. It's something I've always wanted to do. I own various American Strats and I always seem to gravitate to the Frankensteins that I've built. So I've assembled all the best parts and I hope you think it sounds as good as I do and looks as good. So the body, just to rehash if you haven't seen part one, is a 3-piece 3.14 pound Alder body that I finished in shellacs, and the pickguard and all the electronics are Fender Vintera and the hardware is Gotoh. So yeah, so it's all top-notch stuff, and so enjoy, sit back and make yourself a cup of coffee. Right, so now the body's nice and cured, I'm going to start fitting the trem, and the first thing I'm going to do is fit the claw. So I like to just space it off of the bottom there so it doesn't bind, and then centre the claw. Make some marks. There. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill these just a fraction higher than I've marked them, so that I don't drill straight into a routing. So what am I going to use to drill it with? Well, extensions. Plenty of extensions will let you get down low with a shallow angle. And we're going to need to protect this first, and then I'll drill it. I'm just going to the top side of that circle that I marked. Start slow. Oh no, I've gone down. There we go. Doing little bursts. And I'll do the second one the same. I feel a little bit tight, so I may have to go up a size. So I'm going up to 7/64 because the previous drilling was too tight. And I don't want to risk splitting the wood. Yeah, that feels much better. There we go. So we'll leave that like that and go on to the next stage. So now I'm going to screw the trem down. And I'm going to put screws in and take them down so that it could just do this motion and then lays back flat on the body. I always have my drill on the lowest setting, and then I don't take it all the way down. I'll do that by hand. Nice fitting drill bit, screwdriver bit. Likes to stay in the screw. And then I'll take those down so that they just contact, and I just start to feel it move. That's it. That's it, and then back it off. And then you just want to make sure it can move, and that there isn't too much free screw around it. But you just get to that point where you're inhibiting, you don't want to inhibit the motion, but you don't want the thing rattling around. Another good way to check the angle is to lift it up so it's on the bevel, and then just take your screws down so that they just touch and tighten slightly without altering the motion. And you can feel it in your fingers if it's if you've gone too far, because it's just starts to move the trem. There you go. Starting to feel it move there. That's great. So obviously wind your screws out so you've only got like 1/4 of an inch in there, and then you can fit your springs. I like to fit 4. And then you'll just tighten your screws up against your springs. So I'm going to go for 5. You can always take one off. I'm not a huge trem user. I like a bit of wobble on the cords, you know. Lovely. So a lot of people actually fit trems even if they don't use them, because it does really affect the sound. you know, this big block of metal and these springs. It's almost like a reverb tank. I mean, listen to this. And that's going to keep transferring that vibration into the wood. Okay, so now it's time to put the neck in. And then after that, we'll be checking alignment. That's very nice and tight. Yeah, so just a word. This neck, I spoke about it in my last video. It's actually slightly smaller profile than an off-the-shelf neck like you might get from Warmouth or something. So you'll see I've got like a 16th in that pocket there. Now, I would normally remove that and blend it in, but it's my own personal guitar, and down the road if I want to change the neck to a maple one or something like that, chances are the neck that arrives will fill this pocket out. So I like to give it a quick squeeze with a clamp to make sure it's right in the socket before I start putting the screws in there. So I like to put the screws in all the way so that I know that the neck pocket is seated properly. And then I like to back them out like half a turn, or even a full turn actually. And then I'm going to look at the alignment with the strings next. So with two strings on there, you can see that the high E is still a little bit close to the edge. I'd like it kind of in just like a millimetre. So I'm going to use the tiny bit of play that's in that loose neck joint. And I'm going to move the neck in this direction to put more board under here. But obviously I don't want to go too far off of that edge there. I should have just enough clearance to do that. And there you can see, just in that tiny little bit of play in that neck joint, I've managed to get that high E string exactly where I want it. And I mentioned it on the last video, but the reason I like a little bit more meat on the high E string than the low E string is that as you pull off, you pull away from the fretboard when you hammer and pull off, and that's when it can go over the edge. Whereas the high E the low E I play mostly thumb over, so it's pretty captive and it's not going anywhere. And if I do a pull off on the low E, it's going, you know, inwards towards the fretboard. Okay, now I'm going to fit the Fender Vintera loaded scratch plate. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure that these wires are together and that they'll go in there and they're not riding under the scratch plate. You're not trapping anything. With this one, the longest wire is going to go to the trem for soldering. And then these two, which is the hole is down in there, then these two will go to the jack plate through this hole here. Right, so the scratch plate's in there loose, it's not drilled. Now I'm looking at the positioning of the strings over the pole pieces. There's a slight bit of movement I can achieve there to get it how I want it. The back looks good with a nice even gap around the trem, which I'm pleased about because that will look nice and tidy. And then the front looks like the top just wants to keep tight against the board there, and that will be great. So just a little tip before you pre-drill for the pickguard screws is get a sharp object and mark the dead center of the screw hole where you want it to go, like so, and then pre-drill and screw it up. So pre-drilling always ensures that you get a straight cut in there. I mean, you could just wind the screw straight into the material, which is the wrong thing to do because you run the risk of splitting the wood and of the actual screw going in at an angle. So getting ready to do the jack socket, I like to put a little bit of blue thread locker on there, you know, just a little drop. Yeah, plenty, just that little bit. So there you go. I like the tip connection lower in the scheme of things. Gives you more room for the wiring. I'm just going to tin the wires. Then you can put a bend in them and it'll stay bent. So it's much easier to do this final solder there. Come on, you can do it. Right, the live one goes to the jack tip. And the ground goes to the center. There we go. Lovely. So to do this ground connection on the claw, you're going to need quite a powerful soldering iron, and you're going to need to get the heat going on there for quite a while. Okay, she's almost there. What a beauty. I've got to say, I'm really happy with this. So the things left to do are intonation. So basically you adjust these saddles backwards and forwards to adjust the string length so that at the 12th fret you get the same note as you get when you're playing open. I'll also be adjusting the action. With my guitars, I don't use a radius gauge under the strings. I take them down till they buzz and then I lift them till they stop buzzing, and then I use my eye to work out that there's a smooth contour across. And I also like the high E and the B string slightly higher for grabbing and pulling. But for a customer's guitar I would use a radius gauge. And then I'm going to adjust the trem once it's up to pitch. So I'll loosen the springs to a point where a gap just starts to appear, and then I'll tighten them back up so it's flat against the body again. So what that does is it makes the trem optimal, easiest to use in that position. Yeah, so I'll get on with that and give her a play. Yes, I'm really pleased with it. Unplugged, it's really loud. And the pickups sound great, like in the neck position. Lovely and clear. Bell like.
Position. Nice. Nice, but I always pretty much stay on the front position. I'm happy with it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video, even with my cat jumping around in the boxes trying to distract me. But I thought it turned out really well, and I'm really pleased with that. I've got projects coming up, including a really shattered neck. That's going to be a real challenge to do, so that'll be worth watching. And yeah, so like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.